Is it wrong to fight for a greater good? Is it bad to kill for a greater cause? Is war in essence and at its core a bad thing, both for the people in it and for society and the world as a whole? Questions like these are really interesting to think about, and I've been thinking about these a lot lately because of a certain series that I have known for a very long time and have enjoyed for a long time, Gregor the Overlander. And I want to make this video because not a lot of people really talk about this series. Gregor the Overlander is a book series in the Underland Chronicles that has 5 books, written by Suzanne Collins, the same author who wrote The Hunger Games. I have not read The Hunger Games in a while, but I don't remember them very positively. But it's weird. It's weird to think about because I haven't read them in a while, so I don't actually know. But these books do not get enough love, if I'm being completely honest. No one really talks about them all that much. But this series does a very good job of deconstructing the idea of war, as well as the ideals of fighting and killing in general. Not so much in the first book, but in the other ones definitely. So what is this? What is the Underland Chronicles actually about? Let me read you the synopsis on the back of the first book. When Gregor follows his sister through a grate in the laundry room of their apartment building, he hurtles into the dark underland beneath the city. There, humans live uneasily beside giant spiders, bats, cockroaches, and rats. But the fragile peace is about to fall apart. Gregor wants no part in a conflict between these creepy creatures, but when he discovers that a strange prophecy foretells a role for him in the Underland, he realizes it might be the only way to solve the biggest mystery in his life. So, the book is basically about Gregor and his sister Boots falling into a laundry grate, and going to the Underland, which is an underground world underneath New York City. And like the synopsis said, it has underground humans as well as giant creatures like bats, cockroaches, rats, spiders, all those kind of things. And a lot of the time, the humans and other creatures are getting into these big wars because they can't agree on anything, because obviously they're a bunch of different creatures and they all have their own lands and stuff. So, in the first book, there's not all that much that's deconstructed. I think in the first book, it calls into question if all of your enemies are really bad. Because the thing is with this, the main enemies to the humans in the Underland are the rats. And oftentimes, the rats to everyone are seen as bad. But that's not always the case. One of the main characters, Rip Red, is a really old and really experienced rat, who wants all of the fighting and the war to end. Unlike a lot of the other rats who revel in fighting and enjoy the war against the humans and want the humans to die, just like the humans want the rats to die. But some rats, obviously, like Rip Red, don't want that, and even humans, like the leader of Regalia, Vicus, wants the war to end as well because there's been enough casualties on both sides. So I'm kind of rambling through this, but in essence, this series calls into question a lot of the values and ideals people have in war, and whether it's necessary to actually fight in a war, which I think is very interesting because these books are for kids. These are kids' books. The age range between these it's very low. I think it's between 8 and 12 years old for these books. I went to Barnes and Noble and I got the first 2 books. I got these 2. I got it in the kids section. Granted, it was in a young readers kids section, so it might be geared more towards older kids, but still, these are in kids sections. And there's a lot of messed up stuff that happens in these books. which I find very interesting for kids books. Then again, so are per the Percy Jackson series, and there's plenty of messed up stuff that happens in there. So, in terms of the first book definitely feels very a lot more disconnected from the rest of the series. The rest of the series feels very more, feels a lot more focused on a grander story, and they feel a lot more connected than the first book does to a lot of other things. The first book feels more like is more of a contained story with some foreshadowing towards potential future events if this book were to do well, which I assume it did because there are 4 more books in the series after it. So the basic plot of the story is Gregor and Boots fall into the Underland, and basically they are roped into a quest that is given to them and some others from a prophecy written by Bartholomew of Sandwich, who is the founder of Regalia, and they go on the quest to, 1, kill the king of the rats, Gorger. And so that's the basic plot of the story. I'm gonna try to analyze each of the characters and give my thoughts on them. Starting with Gregor, because I think over the course of the series, he definitely grows up a lot. But at the beginning of the series, he's already really grown up. Because the thing with Gregor and his family is 2 years and 2.5 years before the book began, when the book takes place, Gregor has lost his father. His father disappeared one day, and no one knows what happened. Obviously, people ask questions, and they eventually settle on a story to give people who ask, but he essentially becomes one of the grown-ups of the family. Because his family consists of his mom, him, and he is 11 years old at the start of the book, his 8-year-old sister Lizzie, his 2-year-old sister Boots, and his old grandma. So at the beginning of the book, and even before it, he takes on like a more mature role in the family because his dad is gone, and his mom obviously needs help to take care of the family and keep everyone together. Because the thing with their family is they're not exactly living in the best place. They have an apartment that is extremely cramped for the size of their family, and his mom works every single day and doesn't have and multiple jobs every single day, and doesn't have a lot of time to spend with the family or take care of them. So Gregor does take on a more mature role in the family because their family needs someone who can take care of them. And so it's very interesting to see, because over the course of the series, and the more he goes through a lot of the experiences of the Underland and all of the different prophecies that are heaped upon him, he definitely grows into more of a mature person because of the things that he's seen and the things that he's been through. And he handles these great responsibilities. A lot of time he handles them really well, but sometimes it's too much, and it's too daunting, and there's a lot that the Regalian people are asking him to do. It's just interesting to see that his progression through the series, and slowly realizing that in his mind and his mental state, he's not really that much of a kid anymore. Even before the series began, he really wasn't much of one, because at the beginning of the first book, his sister Lizzie goes to camp, and his mom says that his mom is worried about Gregor because he's saying that camp is for kids and he wouldn't want to go because he's staying behind because obviously he has to help look over the family. And so he says that, oh, it's okay, Mom. camp's just for kids. I don't need to go," when he's 11 years old, and kids of that age should be doing stuff like going to camp and whatnot. So even before then, he's already in a more mature mental state. But over the course of the books, and the more that of what he's done, the more battles he's been in, the more death he's seen. It's very interesting just to see him slowly progress into more of an adult, when really a lot of this stuff only happens over the course of a year and a half. So it's very interesting, and at the end of the series, spoilers by the way, it's really weird at the end of the series how much all of the war and battle has affected him in the end, has affected his mental state, because of all the things that he's been through, and how he doesn't really feel at home both in the Underland and as well as in New York City, which was his home before all of the things with the Underland happened. So it's just a reflection of how a lot of the time when people are put into those battles and when they come home, they need something to occupy their time with, and because they were doing so much before, and not just that, also all the trauma that's happened to them over the course of their time in war, has left them with probably nightmares and bad memories for the future, and just in general, a sense of dissatisfaction with your life after, and without a feeling of purpose. At least that's my that's from what I know, and I know very little of what I'm talking about, but that's my interpretation of a lot of the messages that are shown in these books, and shown through the characters and the story, and just a lot of the things. So Gregor's a really good protagonist, I feel. It gives us a sense of someone who's being dragged into a fight that isn't really theirs, because Regalia isn't his city, it isn't his home. So at first he doesn't feel the need to fight for them, because it's not his wars, it's not his land that he's protecting, it's not the people that he's fighting for haven't really grown on him as much as they will in more books. But over the course of the series, he does feel that need to fight for Regalia, because essentially it does become his home after a while. It really does. So Gregor is a really good protagonist, and San wrote him really well. And how he progresses over the course of the series. There's a part of the first book where Vicus, the head of the Regalian Council and an advisor to the young Queen Luxa, as well as Gregor, gives Gregor a really cool jewel-studded sword that is honestly a really beautiful sword. Because Gregor had asked for the sword on the trip because he wasn't able to defend himself most of the time. But Gregor decides to turn down the gift. The reason he does this is because he doesn't want to fight, he doesn't want to kill. But in the 5th book, he does retrieve the sword, he does accept the sword, and he doesn't feel like he can leave it behind. He doesn't feel comfortable without it. Because over the course of the books, he gets more accustomed to fighting. He learns that he's a rager, which basically means that when he's in a fight, his vision blurs. He can only see like the vital parts of the creature that he's fighting, and he basically becomes a killing machine that a lot of the time he can't control. And at the end of during the 5th book, he becomes so accustomed to killing that he just can't. He doesn't feel comfortable without his sword. He doesn't feel comfortable without a weapon to defend himself if something happens. So the progression is very interesting, and it really shows how all of these experiences are really affecting Gregor, with his reluctance to put a weapon aside, even for a little bit. Even while he's in the hospital, he doesn't feel comfortable without it beside him. So it's a very, very good character. Another character that changes a lot over time is definitely the young queen Luxa. Luxa is the queen, or Luxa is essentially the queen of the Underland after her parents, the real king and queen, were killed by rats. Luxa is around Gregor's age, 11 years old, and has definitely seen and has been desensitized to a lot of the fighting and death that has happened in the Underland, because that is their life. That is the life that they live. They always have to defend themselves. But the thing with Luxa is, over time, she hasn't changed to resent fighting. She changes to realize that the creatures that she fights aren't all her enemies. Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, not all of the rats are as evil as she had previously thought. Obviously, she is always going to have resentment towards them because they killed her parents. But the thing is, over time, as more and more rats that side with the humans are explored and are introduced and explored, Luxa becomes a lot more accustomed to the idea that not every person not every rat is bad, and not all of her enemies are evil creatures out to kill the humans. I think that the dichotomy between the rats and the humans obviously is commentary on how how in a lot of, at least this is from an American perspective, a lot of the wars that we have fought in, people have obviously been racist towards a lot of the other groups that we are in the war with, war against. I mean, think of the Vietnam War and how people were treating the Asian population. Think of the war with Iran and Iraq, and how people were treating like Middle Eastern people. And it's like those conflicts, and the people supporting and participating in those conflicts have deep-seated resentment towards their enemies that isn't just going to be displayed in battle and with fighting and killing. It's going to be displayed in their everyday lives, whether it's fair or not. And most of the time, it's not, because it's racist. So a lot of the Regalians and their resentment towards the rats, because I will say that the rats obviously have killed a lot of the humans, but on the flip side, a lot of the humans have killed a lot of the rats. So it's just an interesting dichotomy, because there's not really a good guy in the war. And that just goes to show that a lot of real life wars, there's not really a good guy in a lot of wars, unless it's absolutely one-sided, in which case there's obviously the bad guy. But the thing with the rats and the humans is both of them commit terrible atrocities in these books. Both of them are killers. More so the humans than the others, because that is what a lot of creatures call the humans in these books, killers. But in terms of the war between the humans and the rats, both sides are definitely are definitely bad, are definitely people who have done creatures who have done evil things, very evil things. In the third book, the head of the Regalian army orders a plague to be made to have control over all of the other warm-blooded creatures in the Underland, because the plague would target warm-blooded creatures, which includes humans, bats, rats, and other creatures like that. And it's made in secret, and people are sent on a quest to find the cure for the plague, because at the time, no one knows that it's a plague made by the humans. And people die. People are sent essentially to their deaths because they have to find a cure for a plague that the humans made and already have a cure to, or at least will have a cure to at the time of the quests start. So, and on the other side, the rats generally like to kill and eat a lot of the humans, because a lot of the times the humans have done wrong to them, but also the rats have done wrongs to the humans. It's just a really interesting way of showing it, showing as the books go on that the humans that Gregor are fighting for aren't all good, and it's not always an ethical thing to fight for them, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. It's not good, but it's how life is. I've been rambling a lot with this video, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm trying to say. I think this video is basically... I wanted to make a video more about the whole series and my thoughts on each of the books, but if I'm being honest, I think this video is more me trying to... it's more so me trying to parse through my own thoughts of the messages of these books, and how I completely agree with a lot of the points of these books, and how war is a lot of the times completely unethical, and how it's just, yes, it is. I feel as though it is right to defend yourself against threats who are trying to destroy you. I do think that is ethical to defend yourself, but a lot of the time because a lot of the time I don't think it's right, because you're killing people. You're killing people that you don't know. You're killing people that might have a family, that might have a whole story that you don't know, and you'll never know because you can't ask them, because you can't talk to them, because you have helmets and masks and guns or swords and shields and armor and claws and teeth, and there's just so much resentment towards each other that you don't see other options. And I feel like today a lot of that stuff is still happening, where people don't realize that there are other options besides war, besides conflict, besides killing each other. Because if you're sending out people into a battlefield, not all of them are going to come back alive. There are some people who are obviously willing and ready to die out in the field for a cause they believe in, but sometimes there are people who don't want to kill other people. And that's what a lot of the things that happen in the Underland Chronicles shows. Gregor being one of the main ones, because he doesn't want to kill, but a lot of the time he has to, either to defend himself, to defend his family, defend his sister. The message of these books is something that I honestly resonate a lot with, and I highly recommend checking out these books, even if it's just the first one. I have both these books. I might make more videos on them. This is more of a rambly one. I didn't really have a script for it. I just wanted to make a video just because I really enjoy making videos about things that I have a lot of thoughts about. And the Underland Chronicles has been something that I've enjoyed for a long time. So if you can, pick up these books, and like Barnes & Noble always has them. If they don't, you can order them online. I highly recommend listening to the audiobook. Paul Bateman does a really great job with each of the characters and makes them feel really distinct and have really good personalities. So highly recommend these books, and I will see you guys in the next video.